I'm sharing my screen. Darina, I was saying that we do it as soon as possible with my slides, and then we go with your slides. So, okay, you understand the geopolitical risks per se.
Yeah.
Sure. And so the issue was transportation, logistics, shipping, etc. It's all parts of this global supply chain that is very important for TNC, and that's what is affected heavily, for example, by cyber attacks. Indeed. And all the emerging geopolitical powers or new markets that we were talking last time about, they are also trying to be ready already for these challenges. Someone else is joining us? No. It's not then it back again, this Zoom. Hopefully not. Okay, so yes. Yeah, China, what is China trying to do? China is trying to get its own supply chain, market supply chain, and they're really good at that. They are heavily investing in all the economies, and they control their supply chains very well. For example, in Africa, they when they build infrastructure, because Americans are building infrastructure, so roads, factories, etc., in Africa heavily as well. But when the Americans build it, they usually own it, so they don't leave it to the country, so to say. It's a difference between America and China. And China is kind of building the infrastructure and sort of letting the locals use it as they want, like local administration, local citizens, etc. But instead of that, they have this special conditions for production, for having this small piece of a supply chain production, so they control it very well. It's kind of a trade-off. They give something and they get something. Anyway, right, so Brazil, manufacturing hubs. We were talking about these manufacturing hubs, India, Brazil. Everyone is good at something. China is manufacturing, India adds services, outsourced IT services come usually from India, and Brazil, agriculture, commodity powerhouse. That's what they are kind of specializing in. Yeah, it also makes other countries dependent on these hubs, so to say. And it's also, dependence doesn't mean good situation for most of the players. Yes, what I wanted to tell you more, changing the composition of origins of, yes, so these, because BRIC countries are called usually also new, in a way they emerged already. I wouldn't call them that new, but very quickly developing because they came later. It's a well-known logic when someone starts previously, and it's quite hard to continue with that same speed. And for those newcomers, it's always easier to continue with quicker speed. And new transnational corporations are basically already competing on the same league, on the same level with economies that were already there on the market for a while. Yeah. Yes, still improving domestic infrastructure logistics. Yes, another important division. Why? Because if there are questions on the way, please ask so that I know that you are there. No questions so far. Okay. No. There are headquarter economies and factory economies, and and China, of course, is trying to jump from factory economy to headquarter economy. And headquarter economies are long players already. So US, Germany, Japan, and they mentioned also in Korea, Southern Korea, of course, not Northern. And those who are able, so to say, to produce high-tech quality with the division between the economy that is exhausting the resources and the economy that is working on alternative resources and producing thanks to the production rises thanks to the high tech thanks to the technologies, new technologies. So this is the highest league, so to say, the headquarter economies, and they usually are in the old democracies. In a way, it happens to be there is a correlation between these, yeah, they
Would we
usually
say
yeah.
that, developed countries are headquarters economies? No.
Yeah, many of them are headquarter economies if they produce. It's also a question, what do we mean by developed countries, right? If Croatia is a developed country or not, because they have tourism there and they have, well, great results on GDP per capita and general GDP, etc. Or is it, you know, it's a question, what do we mean by developed economies? But yes, in a way, we would say that the developed economies are headquarter economies in a way. If they produce, right? If yeah, and this other type of treaty is factory economies. So it's factory Europe, they call it factory Asia. So they provide cheap labor, they provide cheap renting the land, they provide cheap renting the factories. So everything, well, cheap, maybe lower, with lower prices than it would have been in headquarter economies. And yeah, it's of course, it's in a way imperial logic, because UK, United Kingdom, why was it a big force throughout the centuries? In all terms, economic terms, inter alia, because, well, they were having a commonwealth of countries that were in a way dependent on UK. So they were supplying the metropole, the headquarter, with sources. Like basically Russia was supplied with sources from Ukraine, from Tajikistan, Turkmenistan, etc., Belarus. And this is why the headquarter economy is doing well, or will be doing well for a while. But if you cut those, connections from headquarter to factory economies, then, or the factory economy wants to become the headquarter economy, like China wants to, then yeah, the rules will be different. But it's an eternal issue of metropolia and yes, areas which are called, how is it called in English? Ресурсні території, території, які насичують ресурсами метрополію. Yeah. No questions so far. I'm just looking through what I wanted to give you quickly so that you have time. Shape TNCs, obviously. Energy costs, scarcity state. No, this. Yes, so obviously they cannot be avoided, these risks, geopolitical risks, they can be managed. It's a question of correct finding of communication with policymakers on the ground. So what are the corporate geopolitics? The corporate geopolitics as a concept when the global business is trying to develop close nexus to the policymakers, and in order to have this all smoothly going. State as an owner, that's another concept that I wanted to show you today, is that sometimes not only the transnational corporation can tell what to do to the state, but vice versa. It's also the case. These are two different trends, basically, and they coexist. They coexist simultaneously because it's a question of power. Who is executing more power in regard to another one? And transnationalization of state ownership, so-called TNC that are owned by the state. Also very interesting that China is leading this. And I was mentioning to Anastasia and to Darina at the beginning that yes, it's 5.2% of all the world transnational state-owned enterprises, excuse me. China, and also this is what they do in Anglo-Saxon, Anglo-American sphere. They invest in, yes, other emerging or emerged already markets in Brazil, in Central Europe, everywhere where they can, they emerge. And this is basically how they got into, and it's also a political question already, how they got into the Security Council of the United Nations. You remember at the beginning of the United Nations, there was no China. And China has nothing to say about in the peace, for the questions of peace in Europe. Oh, yeah. Besides, China was Maoistic, so communist, and communism was just like National Socialism in Germany, authoritarian, considered to be authoritarian regimes. Therefore, countries with authoritarian regime had very little to say in the United Nations when it was popping up in 1945. But this is what China actually was successful about, but for so-called bilateral diplomacy. So they were talking with each United Nations member separately, and then they were promising economic profit for each of the countries. So that's how they got into the Security Council, and that's how they equally to Russia, inter alia, yes, can ban any decisions that the United Nations as a whole decides about. But yes, it's a different pot, so to say, to talk about. Yes, so what is basically as a feature of the community structure is the focus Northern European group, far more to the West European, African American. So there are spheres of influence, as we understand. Germany and France are having the most sphere of influence in Europe, obviously, but also in Africa, in Middle East. But yes, US also is having influence in Middle East. So US firms, Shell, etc. This is why Iraq wars were in a way happening, or this is why the issue with Israel is also, it's a permanent conflict. They are living in a permanent conflict every day.
Israel.
Palestine, Israel never existed before, was it 48 or 49? And as a state, and then United Nations pops up with the idea, why not to give Jews a separate state, and Palestine, the territory that was inhabited by people already, Muslims, yes, predominantly Muslims, because Middle East, they were not really happy about it. They remain not to be happy about it. And I am basically, because it's political interest of the US to keep Israel there as the hub for their interests. It's in a way it's unfair in terms of state building for the Palestine. They still don't have soundly functioning state. Germany, Scandinavia, and Baltics, part of Eastern Europe. They are also dominating in some areas of Africa, Middle East, and Northern America. And Russia has its own influence as well on the as the owner of the transnational corporations. I've taken it actually from a big map of different colors, which I think I cannot display at the moment, but on the map, of course, it is better seen how the big players, that big countries, are actually shareholders of transnational corporations. Right, so China, and State Grid. So all the strategic companies, strategic enterprises, so energy enterprises, all sorts of yes, military enterprises, everything is owned, predominantly owned by China as the state. They also acquire, it's also a question of merger and acquisition, and we will have it next time. They also, as the state, acquired some Italian tire manufacturer, Pirelli, as an example of how a state can, through the transnational corporations, execute its political and economic power. Yes. Germany, France, traditionally they have this strong focus on transportation sector because they are producers of cars. So they are trying to keep it keep a parity between themselves. They know that they have to live in peace in between themselves, but basically, yes, they as the country policy, basically, not even some particular citizen of the country, but the country policy is in a way owner of or shareholder of the transnational corporation that is dealing with car manufacturer, BMW or Mercedes-Benz or Volkswagen, etc. Yes, China obviously is creating lots of turmoil for the rest of the world. And yes, preferred targets of state investment remain, of course, safe jurisdictions of European core countries, Anglo-American sphere. So if you want to make a safe investment, you always look for democracies or well-developed countries. But if you are ready to risk your money, you can go outside. Technology and corporations. So basically, yes, juxtaposed actors, international environment, exercise power over each other. They do exercise power over each other, so it's a question of permanent stress, of permanent influence, so to say. Who is in charge is also hard to say sometimes, the TNC or the country, the state. This is pretty much it, what I wanted to draw your attention to, and I will send it to you because you would maybe need it for the next class when we will be talking about the merger and acquisitions and due diligence that we will do next time. But now I would give you the floor. Who would like to, or who's ready to say something?
Dasha.
because I was not doing the PR at the beginning, so to say, but where is the PR?
I have about Ukrainian companies that regulate lobbyists.
Yeah. Can you share the screen with us? Do you?
No, because I use my phone.
Yeah.
And I have just.
Can you send it to me? I can share this then on the screen.
Okay.
No, that's okay. I can still make while you're doing it. Maybe yes. I was thinking in this direction of yes, due diligence and merger and acquisition. What do you think as the topics for the next time? Those who are not busy with sending me the presentation. Volodymyr, Anastasia.
Yeah. Sorry, I lost you.
Yeah, so I was, the track of thinking is that I am consulting with you if you're okay with the topic that we would have next time. I was thinking of due diligence.
What does it mean?
It means that before the merger and acquisition, before the big company before Facebook is buying Instagram or any other smaller startup, they have to conduct analysis of the company. They have to see how how reliable is the company, what are the revenues, what are the spendings, what is good, what is bad, so to say. So I thought that maybe we'll go in that direction, and also, yeah, so merger and acquisition, and also due diligence as part of merger and acquisition. I also was thinking, because I don't know, did you think in the direction of this PR campaign for Ukraine and what connects Ukraine, or did you have any kind of thoughts on that direction?
I didn't have yet, but I
excellent, very good. You're in constant thinking about it, right?
But I can't even imagine what concepts in Ukraine can be shared.
Can give you a hint.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's something crazy because
well, it's also economic terms, in economic terms thinking, because we are so very different, and there is not much that, well, in a way, in politically, culturally, or ideologically joins us. The language is dividing us. The religion is also dividing us. The idea about the state and the state building and the connection is dividing us, but economics is joining us, and economics, how to find it on the ground, right? How to find it in application. And I was thinking of self-governance. Right now we're having the decentralization reform, and it's one of the most successful, said to be one of the most successful reforms in Ukraine, when local amalgamated hromadas, об'єднання територіальні громади, are gaining new knowledge in participatory budget, in municipal issues, in ecological, in transport issues, etc. And this is what is joining us, because we all are, although the situation geographically could be different, the challenges are in a way similar. We have a community, hromada, and we have to learn how to govern ourselves. This is what is maybe not that typical for eastern part of Ukraine, because eastern part of Ukraine is always ready to be governed by the central government. So what the central government says, which policies they do, what economic decisions they made for us, we will be happily doing it. We will be happily implementing, or not implementing, or just pretending to implement it. But with this reform, we have a chance to become self-sufficient. We have a chance to have this sector of economy, which is small and medium enterprises, developed, which is the main force of any economy. We have the then banking system to be developed, because if small and medium enterprises need loans, the banks need to give loans. And with this, we have already good macroeconomic показники. I always having this issue with the word. And it gives us the chance to close our gaps of external debt. So, it starts from a scratch, from a small thing that is called how we govern ourselves, how people, decide how much money. And yes, they can earn the money, because different territories can earn the money on different issues. And as the taxes will remain mostly on the ground, so the budgets will be there. So we need to learn how to use the budgets, so to say, on the ground. So I was thinking in that direction, and how to play around it with a PR campaign that would be understandable for all the citizens from different parts. And I would suggest, for example, to do it in teams. So maybe if I know that we are having this Corona live, but if you could talk via internet, via, I don't know,
of course,
join your forces. I don't know if I should put you in teams, but maybe a girl and a boy would be a good team. Girl and a boy, or you want to be gender based?
Okay, girl and boy, it's pretty good, I think.
Yeah. What do you say, Volodymyr, Darina? Do you feel like, is that okay that you would be in teams of two, thinking about it. It's always good to have someone to brainstorm with. I don't know. Darina, whom? Yeah, did you see
Yeah, this
Vladimir?
is good.
Okay, good. Yeah, so divide between yourselves. How do you want to be in which team? Or I can divide automatically, but maybe you know already whom you work better with or so. So yes, this logic, this direction of thinking would be this decentralization reform and self-governance, and it would and the another idea is that Ukraine had Magdeburg, right? Magdeburg law. Do you know what it is?
Магдебургське право.
Magdeburgskie prawo.
Так?
Genau.
Магдебургське право, так?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Я слышу.
Да. Darina, did you send me the presentation maybe?
I didn't have presentation. I have just a little text.
Okay,
I
good.
said,
Oh yeah. Then you will talk about it. Okay. So okay. It's just that we don't see you, and that's why it's complicated. But okay. So yes, the Magdeburg right, the Magdeburg law is basically the state self-governance law. It popped up in the Middle Ages in Europe, in Magdeburg, which is next to Berlin, some kilometers from Berlin, and the idea was that yeah, people should become independent because they were in slavery as well. Should become independent and start governing themselves. So they start. It's also the issue is manufactura, when the small producers popped up and started producing something. And цехи, да, по виробництву різного там, ось цехове виробництво, так зване. And in order to be governed as the separate entity, they first they started living, of course, it started happening not in the village, but in the city, in the town. Тобто це феномен абсолютно міський, ось, and this is what Ukraine got as well. We were part of the Magdeburg Recht, Magdeburg law, and it basically gives us this flavor or like the roots, коріння, яке йде в, наприклад, теж таки, ну, Магдебурзьке право існувало в Україні аж до Полтави. Далі воно не існувало, так, до Запоріжжя і так далі воно не дійшло, але до Полтави воно дійшло, і воно укорінилося там, і воно якийсь час навіть, типу, були референції до цього. Чому це важливо? Тому що це підспуддя малого і середнього бізнесу. Тому що було регульоване право, яке давало можливість ввести цей бізнес, так? І, ясна річ, податки забиралися, але вони були не аж такі, щоб позбавити підприємця можливості реалізувати свої ідеї. І тому мені здається, що це та ідея, that's the idea that could connect, because it's in economic terms, it's the development of all the regions. It's very regional targeted idea. Maybe you could develop it in better or like your understandings, but I would, for example, suggest this some project. Darina, are you ready?
yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Tell us again, what is your topic that you will be talking about?
I would like to talk about Ukrainian lobbying company.
Yeah.
It's a company that regulated lobbyists. What? I have, there are a little information, that's why it's about 2 minutes.
Yeah, good.
So how we know, in large foreign corporations, there are special departments for relations with government bodies.
Yeah.
It is so-called GR, so government relations departments, which specialize in interaction with government representatives. But in Ukraine, there are still no legal mechanism that would regulate the activities of lobbyists but we have such company like Ukrainian Government Relations Consulting. Is the first Ukrainian company that focused on government relations. This company is engaged in interaction with the central government authorities like administration of the President of Ukraine, Cabinet of Ministers, and Verkhovna Rada. This company provides advice on high quality business cooperation with government authorities and also provides a full range of services for representing clients in the government of Ukraine. So
yeah, interesting. And they are functioning on the market since when? Well, how long do they work?
If I'm mistake, about 10 years, if I'm mistake.
You're not mistaken, okay, and which interests, which firms, which companies do they represent? Which interests do they represent? Do you know the companies' names that they represent?
Really, no. There are a little information about this company, and what I found, I told you.
Yeah, interesting. Right, so it started somehow without any, even without regulation, even without legal basis for this to function. What do we do? We have questions to that, and we continue to Anastasia, right?
Victoria, could I ask you, let me go early, please. It's 40 minutes, could you or not?
Yeah, sure. It's just that I wanted you to do the presentation, and then you can do. And we're
maybe I'll send you presentation.
no, we want to hear you with the presentation.
And I will tell next time, please.
You said that you are ready for today.
But I have to go. It's 40 minutes.
40 minutes, and then you don't come back for the next class that we have.
No.
Oh yeah. And we need to listen to your presentation, and we have 6 minutes, so go ahead. Share your screen. Go.
Okay.
No, that's serious. I am recording it, by the way.
Okay. Yeah, I see that you are recording it.
Because I need to report, that we are having the classes.
Oh, так, so Zoom.
Виктория Александровна, а может мы без перерыва просто с вами поработаем, и вы нас раньше отпустите?
Хорошо, давай без перерыва, но вот сейчас услышим Анастасию.
Небольшой перерывчик.
Еще раз, Владимир. Что говорит?
Мне написала, что организатор отключил демонстрацию экрана участников. Вы отключили демонстрацию экрана, не разрешаете нам.
Да, серьезно? О боже.
Может, вы выключите свою демонстрацию, и мы тогда сможем...
Yeah, stop share. Go ahead.
Вот, так, сейчас I try. No.
Вот посерединке, да, это share screen?
Посерединке, да.
Yeah.
No.
No?
I can't, no.
Or we do it again with what is it, the topic that you wanted to share, to give a presentation on?
Lobbying and business.
Oh, that would be interesting to hear.
But
that would be logical to hear.
We have 40 minutes already, Victoria. Please.
Yeah, we can start it again, the video, and then you can present, and then I will briefly go through my material and let everyone go. So we do like this. We start again, and
maybe without me, no.
No, without you not. You will present, and then you will be happily going where you need to go. Okay, so again, I'm sending you invitation again because it's...
Okay.